The college football experience. Eddie George named the head coach of Bowling Green, and Frank Reich, the new interim head coach at Stanford, episode on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up at underdogfantasy.com. Use our promo code TCE SGPN to get up to $1,000 in bonus credits. And remember, as always, folks, to let it ride.
Hey, this is Bill Romanowski. You're listening to SGPN. Let it ride.
Yes, yes, yes. Woo! Welcome to the college football experience. Eddie George to Bowling Green and Frank Reich to the interim head coach of the Stanford Cardinals there with Andrew Luck episode. If you're wondering who the hell you're listening to, that's fair. My name is Colby Swig at Database Dad, a.k.a. Pick Dundee. That's not a pick. This is a pick.
He was raised in the land down under, where a man thinks on his feet, speaks with his fists, and lives by his wits.
When Dundee happened, he was a superstar.
I'm probably drinking too much and celebrating too much and not sleeping. Would have killed a normal man, but no, that's gone. The medical advice I got from that was like being hit by lightning. Pretend it never happened and get on with your life.
Oh boy, I've been trying to get this episode done for a few weeks now. But I just got to say, I'm a fucking genius on one of these ones. Oh yeah, it's a college experience episode. Of course I'm bragging. But before we get all of that, I am joined by my co-host. Give it up for former South Carolina and West Virginia staffer, former staffer at those two places. Give it up for Ryan McIntyre, a.k.a. Moneyline Mac. How are you, brother?
Doing good, man. Yeah, ready to talk some carousel here and, transfer portal. It never sleeps.
Mac tonight. Come on, make it Mac tonight. Great segue, man, because, I know that the subject at hand is, we're talking kind of Bowling Green and Stanford of all things, kind of a wacky episode in those regards. Those two have not been paired maybe ever, besides Jack Harbaugh perhaps, but there's also news, and this kind of goes with Stanford because Stanford has Cal on the schedule. One of my favorite rivalries, actually. I know people, I think the Kevin Moan return is the greatest play in the history of football personally, but Cal, before we get to Stanford and Bowling Green here, Cal, some news out of Berkeley. Well, obviously, we have this battle going on. Ron Rivera is their general manager, former Cal linebacker for them. And, like the NIL, boosters involved with their NIL don't want to give money until they know that Rivera is they're in full control the same way Andrew Luck is at Stanford. Honestly, they said that. So they're clearly paying attention to Andrew Luck at Stanford, which we'll be talking about a little bit here. But for whatever reason, I don't know where that's currently at as far as, where does that, is Rivera getting control? I don't know, but I can tell you, I kind of think not, because their star running back, Jaden Ott, is entered the portal and landed at Oklahoma just like that. Boom. Jaden Ott, who was he was dinged up last year, but man, the past 2 years, the previous 2 years, I should say, he was an absolute beast for the Cal Golden Bears, and he ends up with the Oklahoma Sooners, who, recently they took 2 offensive linemen from Stanford, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but they have been, John Mateer comes over from Washington State following the OC Arbuckle. This is a big thing. I would say one of the bigger transfers in the spring we'll probably see here. I'm curious. Venable's obviously in a make or break year for the Sooners. in his career as a head coach, probably. What do you make of this move? Do you buy it in that maybe we should buy some stock in the Oklahoma Sooners?
Hey, coaching still does matter, but from what they've done so far in the portal, yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of Mateer, and then Ott coming over from Cal. Don't let the stats deceive you from last year. You go just a year before that, he had over 1,300 yards on the ground, 5.5 yards a carry, 12 touchdowns. I mean, this guy's a difference maker. And Oklahoma, I mean, they've stocked up in the trenches this offseason as well, and make or break year. Venables with his back against the wall. I mean, last time we kind of saw him with his back against the wall, I thought was year number 2, coming off that really bad year number 1. And I thought they had a pretty good year for the most part, going 9-3. But I mean, this is a pivotal year, because last year was bad, and then it ended with a bowl game loss to Navy.
Yeah. That's never good. I think if you're a Sooner fan, at one point, the winningest program in the history of college football, depending on how you look at it. Some still argue that they are. But yeah, I think this is once again big news. And Cal just seems to be a team that has been kind of rated in the portal lately. It makes me believe that it sucks, because it seemed like before the Rivera hire, it seemed like they had some things going in the right direction. Obviously, they probably should have beat Miami a year ago when College Game Day was there, and that awesome scene there in Berkeley. But this is tough news. I mean, they got rated on a few guys. One of their top wideouts went to Nebraska. So I mean, they're taking some major hits now. The Golden Bears are. We'll see if Justin Wilcox and Rivera can weather that storm, and we'll talk about them in a little bit. Obviously, we break down all 136 teams with a solo podcast for each and every team in the land on the College Football Experience. So subscribe. But I had to hit with that news. I can tell you this: I'm buying some stock, I think, in Venables and Oklahoma. Yeah. Obviously, we'll do a deeper dive in them, but I think the desperation is a good thing. Now, I know I've joked around. Oklahoma is what I call them, because they're going to be Arkansas in the SEC. But for this year, maybe there's something there. I know I got to dive deeper into the schedule, but the Mateer the Ott some of the guys on the O-line, they got to get better at wideout, though. They were fucking terrible at wideout last year too, I felt like. But I still think maybe this is a year where they could jump up, especially with getting some of these guys this late in the transfer portal. Gonna talk now to, just the big news here on these hires. But before I do that, I do want to let you know that the College Football Experience is part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. And look, if you're looking for all of SGPN's picks and podcasts in one convenient place, yes, Sports Gambling Podcast, the College Basketball Experience, Golf Gambling Podcast, MLB Gambling Podcast, whatever it is, NASCAR Gambling Podcast. Download the app, the free SGPN app, in whatever store you use, whether it's iTunes, whatever. It's a free download, and we're not trying to get you on that. You'll get access to all of our picks, our podcasts, our articles. We got people. J Mark just did a NFL draft mock draft for 3 rounds, I believe. So you'll get access to all of that for free. So grab the SGPN app and let it ride. All right, we are back on the College Football Experience. And Mac, I know we were in the middle of
hoops.
But I did an episode when Scott Loeffler, who I was never a big fan of on this show, despite him turning it around some and bringing in a lot more talent than I thought he could. So I'll give him credit in that regard. But he left late in the coaching cycle to be the Philadelphia Eagles quarterbacks coach, I believe. And it was at the time I thought it was going to be the latest coaching hire, but then Stanford and Kent State said, "Hey, no." But on the episode where I talked about what Bowling Green should do, I thought you're so late into the cycle. It was a lot like Mel Tucker at Colorado or something, where you didn't have. He kind of screwed over Colorado that year because the coaching cycle had gone. So you were kind of stuck. Either you stay with the staffer, which we'll talk about with Stanford in a bit, but you're kind of in a jam of like, man, we can't get any of these coaches. They're already committed to this or this, but unless you go FCS or unless you go coach outside of that's not currently coaching or something like obviously I said like Urban Meyer, but because he was once a Bowling Green coach, But one of the ones I said I think they should do, I think it was my number one answer, if memory serves me correct, was I think they should take a shot at Eddie George. He's an Ohio legend, played at Ohio State. It's not as random as I like people say the Michael Vick thing at Norfolk State or Deshaun Jackson at Delaware State. Fair. Those are two former great players, much like Eddie George. But Eddie George has proven he came into Tennessee State and he built that thing. So you look at what he did in year one at Tennessee State. He was 5-6, year two, 4-7. And then they get a little bit of a jump, 6-5, right? And beating a Kennesaw State team on the verge of an FBS that year. And then last year's breakthrough season, 9-4. They go to the FCS playoffs, and really they played Montana, I think, decently well, considering Montana being such a powerhouse in the FCS. So I thought it made a lot of sense. I thought they could outbid them. Bowling Green's a program with actually a ton of rich football history. Like we mentioned Urban Meyer, but Dave Clawson, Dino Babers, Don Nealon. You can go on and on and on about the amount of good coaches that have came through Bowling Green. So I thought, if I was the athletic director, I said the first thing I would do is probably call Eddie George to see, because you could probably get Ohio's a great high school recruiting state. You could probably get a lot of talent from there and Tennessee. And then I thought also, because when Loeffler left, a bunch of guys started to hit the portal. I was like, you could bring his Tennessee State guys with him that made the FCS playoffs. We talked about this in college basketball with Drake and that great run they had. They go out and get a D2 team, and here they are winning games in the NCAA tournament. They hadn't won a tournament game since the 70s, right? So I think it made a lot of sense. And clearly, I'm not just a drunken idiot like most people think. I mean, I am that, but I also, even a drunken idiot can, be accurate sometimes. And I nailed this one, man, because they go out, they do hire Eddie George. They bump up his salary. I mean, going to talk about his coaching staff, because one thing that did stand out is Jeff Fisher not making the transition with him. Jeff Fisher was on that Tennessee State staff.
Yeah.
But what do you make of the hire overall of bringing in Eddie George to Bowling Green? To me, like, I know I might get some scrutiny for this. I think, considering the timing, I think it's the best they could have done, probably. I mean, short of Urban Meyer returning to Bowling Green, which I don't think he was interested in, I think you did the best possible thing you could do with the cards dealt to you. But I'm curious your take.
Yeah, and I would say I thought Eddie George did a pretty good job at Tennessee State. He won the Coach of the Year in the Big South this last year. He's bringing over his whole staff minus Jeff Fisher. I wish Jeff Fisher was coming, because he's kind of a mentor to Eddie George. But I'm not going to compare him to Deion just because Deion was dominant at Jackson State. But Eddie George and Deion basically came in the same year. So Eddie George is still sometimes I think we get spoiled by coaches that come in and make it look easy right away. That's usually not how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to learn, get better, and evolve as a coach. And I think Eddie George has done that. Every year they've gotten better at Tennessee State. I'm with you on Loeffler. Like, I always felt like Bowling Green in a bye game would look the part, and whether it was against UCLA or some other team in a bye game, and then they would get to league play and they would just underwhelm. So yeah, I think they've underachieved. Maybe that now they overachieve with Eddie George here. And I like that he's bringing his whole staff. He's bringing his offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator over from Tennessee State, Brandon Fisher, and then Travis Partridge. So little continuity on that staff.
Yeah, I like it too, man. And I know they're bringing over a slew of guys from Tennessee State. I know it's hard to find information on that, but one of the things that jumped out too is he's bringing in Drew Pyne. Drew Pyne, yes, a former Notre Dame court. I mean, shit, he started off the top of my head, I want to say he started like 9-10 games for Notre Dame. Started a couple games at Arizona State and Missouri. But man, I'll tell you this: he's like 27 years old. Considering the hand you were dealt, because one of the reasons why I do think Loeffler left was last year's team was the oldest team, man. Like in the MAC, one of the oldest teams in college football. If memory serves me correct, I think they were I think they might have been the oldest team in college football, or amongst them. So the cupboard was a bit empty, and I think Loeffler read those tea leaves of saying, well, I almost got canned my first time. I know I signed that extension, but here I am in this jam where we might not be very good. Now Eddie George comes in, and to me, going to get a quarterback, which seemed to be an area of weakness heading into this, whether Loeffler stayed or not, getting an experienced guy like this. Now I know you can make the joke, well, he was at all these schools, he struggled at all these schools. You started at Notre Dame for 9 or 10 games.
It's the MAC.
Yes. And to me, I want in this day and age, you make much like I said with that. If I was athletic director, I call Eddie George. If I'm a sitting head coach, I want to be as old as I can be in college football now. And we see Rick Pitino talk about this in basketball, another basketball analogy, but I'm saying, to me, get the old quarterbacks because they're the ones out of any position, I feel like, where the age really helps them. The game slows down for them. So I think you you've seen it also. Just look at Stetson Bennett or something that was in college forever. A lot of these teams that have had a great postseason success, Riley Leonard, you're getting veteran quarterback play. So I love that play out the gate. I know he's bringing in a slew of his guys too, which I think, much like the Drake thing, if you're bringing in FCS playoff talent, to me, you've seen it. You have a good 20-year sample size of FCS teams coming up. Yes. JMU came up and just laughed at college football, right? Was like, oh, we have to sit out this thing. Don't worry. We're still going to beat the shit out of everyone in the Sun Belt. Right. And they did, they looked great coming up. You've seen it with App State and Georgia Southern. Yeah. Jacksonville State last year, Sam Houston State last year. You saw this with a lot. I feel like almost every team. The only one that I can think of off the top of my head that just was a flat out fail was UMass, who's now in the MAC, by the way. But most of these schools, I feel like, have came up, and when they've come up and they've looked pretty damn good. I want to say it's like an 80 or 90%. Coastal Carolina, another one. So I think getting a bunch of guys to transfer in, which, like I said, I know it's a little hazy, but I did see, if you search Twitter and stuff, you could find a decent amount of Tennessee State guys that are going to be heading to Bowling Green. Now, I still want I was trying to find an exact answer on how many players. I could not find that information, but something to pay attention to. But I think that's another way that, in a way, when you think about the hand they were dealt, Scott Loeffler leaving this late into the season or the off season, I think the team would have been terrible with Loeffler this year, personally, because they were so old last year. They were going to be young. I actually think by Eddie George bringing in Pyne and some of his Tennessee State guys, I think they're going to put a much better product on the field this year than they would have had. Call me crazy.
I agree. And so he's bringing over his Tennessee State guys. He's also bringing in multiple high major transfers. So Pyne being the headliner, but bringing guys in from schools like Indiana and Florida and Stanford and company. So, I mean, I know there's a reason they're transferring down, but they still were talented enough at one point to play at that Power 4, Power 5 level. So yeah, and Chris B, yes, UMass, the Minutemen are part of the MAC now.
Yes, and dude, and look, Tuesday night Eddie George stuff at the Doit. You know, I'm all here for it. Now I have their schedule in front of me, but I just wanted to just hammer this home that I think they really did a good job here. Like hiring, there wasn't many names out there. I think I gave away some. I was like, do you call Dino Babers, who was once a coach here? Has that ship sailed? Are you mad that he left after 2 years? You never know the politics behind it. But I thought, man, Eddie George, I think, was one of the best possible answers they could have done. They did it. And now I think you can sit there and say, hey, I think we could be a bowl team or something this year. I don't think that was the case the year prior, or, you know, coming into it with Loeffler's team this year. So I do have the schedule, youtube.com/the college experience. Hop on over there, hit that like and subscribe button. But yeah, I mean, the Falcons have Lafayette on a Thursday night to start things off, which is, I love this opening Thursday night because you have Deshaun Jackson, Delaware State, Delaware's first game in the FBS, Deshaun Jackson's first game at Delaware State. You get Norfolk State taking on Towson with Michael Vick's first game, and Eddie George's first game at the FBS, all on a Thursday night. Lucky us. Lafayette, though, they should have no problems with, even though I know some of these MAC schools have struggled against Patriot League teams. But after that, they get the Cincinnati Bearcats. Now, I don't know what to like. Cincinnati Satterfield's in a pivotal year. I just don't know if Eddie George's team will be ready by week 2. But hey, Cincinnati was not a great team a year ago. Why couldn't they give them a game there? Then they get the Flaming Libs of Liberty in Bowling Green, Ohio at the Deut. And then they're at Louisville. The non-con is fucking challenging. I'm not going to bullshit you. Like, you're probably, no matter who the hell you're putting that head coach, you're probably looking at 1-3. But let me just throw this out there. Liberty, Caden Salter transferred to Colorado, where he's going to have his jersey retired next year. Yeah, I see out of order in the court. As a lifelong Colorado fan, I think that's ridiculous too. I mean, I don't want to go on too much of a tangent here, but I actually think it would make sense in time. Like, both players were great. I saw Darren Cheverini's post on this. Like, in time, it makes a lot of sense, but you're passing up these guys that deserve it. It doesn't. Now I'll say this: if this was something in his contract to retain him, fuck it, I'm in, because Colorado was so dead that what he's done has been such a great thing for the university. But overall, I find it ridiculous. Darian Hagan and Cordell Stewart and a lot of other guys, Alfred Williams and stuff, should be retired before those guys. But as far as this schedule, I know I'm going all over the place, but the chat can do that sometimes to us here on the College Football Experience. But the non-con of Cincinnati, Liberty, and Louisville is incredibly challenging. Now, they might be able to catch Liberty, even though Jamie Chadwell's a damn good coach there. But losing, they got kind of raided in the portal too. So maybe they could go 2-2. But what do you make of that non-con? You think it's probably 1-3, right?
It's 1-3, but I will say I got the odds up for the MAC just over here on the left-hand side because I was curious. I know these are way too early. There's still portals in and out. Bowling Green is listed 5th among the odds, actually tied for 4th with Buffalo at 7-1. And Miami of Ohio is 3rd at 6-1. They have a nice conference schedule, drawing Akron, UMass, and Kent.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was gonna, I mean, look, and let me tell you, if you bet chalk to win the MAC, you are a fucking moron, because it never goes chalk, or very rarely goes chalk in the MAC. Yeah, you're right though. Away, you want, and there's no Northern Illinois on the schedule, which has been, it's their final year in the MAC before they jump to the Mountain West. But getting Kent State, getting Akron, getting UMass, all blessings. Now, I will say though, out the gate's kind of brutal. First 6 games are kind of brutal. The back 6, you're sitting there saying, okay, that's where I think he can find his stability. The first 6 though, pretty fucking tough.
And Colby, what is something you and I both preach over and over again? And I'll give you actually the credit. I've kind of have ran with your narrative, and I run with it in basketball. When do first-year head coach teams play their best football? So maybe they're not playing good football, but they're just playing better teams. They go 1-5, whatever. But then you could see them run off like 5 out of the last 6 in November when they start taking on the identity of their coach. So,
and when they start playing those Tuesday night games, which, by the way, let's talk about that for a second. Just the fact you have Eddie fucking George, who won a Heisman Trophy, played in the Super Bowl, was a yard away from winning the Super Bowl, as the chat's talking about. You're going to have him on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I think that's a great selling point for your university. And I wonder how he's going to be able to recruit. I think he's a guy with charisma too. Like, I know that, he got hired at the same time as Dion, and Dion's like just entertainer through the fucking roof. But I'm just saying, I wonder long-term here at Bowling Green, for years, we feel like Toledo, which, by the way, one of my favorite rivalries, the Battle of I-75. But Toledo's kind of been the most talented team on paper most of these years recently in the MAC. From a recruiting standpoint, I feel like they always kill it. This might tilt that thing back to Bowling Green with the fact that Eddie George can just walk in your living room and say, dude, come play for me. I built Tennessee State. I've played in the Super Bowl. I've been to the highest stages, won a Heisman Trophy. So what do you think, like recruiting wise? Will they have a huge edge? Northern Illinois, who's one of the better teams in this conference, is leaving the conference. UMass is coming in. Toledo's still there. I think Toledo's like, sorry, Bowling Green fans. I think Toledo would be the team to beat moving forward. But you wonder with Eddie George there, can they steal the talent and essentially be the team to beat in this conference?
Well, I think they already have. I mean, where would you rank Drew Pyne? I know Drew Pyne hasn't been the best quarterback at Notre Dame, but that was at Notre Dame. But we're talking Bowling Green here, even though Notre Dame is 0-1 against the MAC in the last
dude, he
year.
threw 22 touchdowns. That's hilarious. He threw 22 touchdowns 1 year at Notre Dame. I pulled up these stats. 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. That's a huge kid.
Was that Brian? Was that Freeman's first year? Yes. Yeah. So it was Freeman's
I think it might
first
have been.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, they went 9-4. It wasn't like they were terrible. And actually, Pyne didn't even start the first 2 games that they lost. He started after they lost to Marshall. So Pyne as a starter at Notre Dame went 8-2 down the stretch. Yeah. And then, so I mean, you get him in the MAC. I mean, he's automatically got to be in the top 3 quarterbacks, I got to think. So I think that's why their odds are already at 7-1. I'm kind of bullish on Bowling Green already. So yeah, let's go Falcons.
Yeah. I mean, look, I like the hire too. I mean, I wonder what, the back half of the season, I'll definitely be taking them ATS and stuff, but I still think it might be worth a sprinkle. I know they lose, everybody. Terrion Stewart went to Virginia Tech, but a bunch of other guys graduated. Basilak, the former Mizzou QB, but I think that Tennessee State, he's going to bring in a lot of these Tennessee State guys. There's already a bunch of Tennessee State commits, but I'm saying, I think that mixed with Drew Pyne and a coaching staff that's been intact for the most part, I like it. And no Northern Illinois on the schedule. UMass, Akron, Kent State. Why not take a shot on that right now? Take a shot on that future with the Bowling Green Falcons. And here's the question though. Before we switch over to Stanford here, does if he wins, how long is he there? Because that's the problem. If he goes 7-5 this year, or just makes a bowl, and then next year they win a MAC championship, you gotta think some schools are going to come call it. Now, does he stay for a third year? He seems like a loyal guy. I mean, to a certain extent, but I mean, he's a human being. If that Cincinnati job opens,
yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? Like, so I think it's a great thing for Bowling Green, but I do worry long term. How long? Gun to your head right now. How long is Eddie George the coach of the Bowling Green Falcons?
Well, I mean, obviously that's a tough one just because you gotta win. I mean, Clark Lay down there at Vandy.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Pavia came in last year and kind of saved his fucking job and bringing in Jerry Kill and company, but he's got ties down there in Nashville too. At Tennessee State, he played for the Titans. I mean, there they ran the shit there, and I'm trying to think where Jeff Fisher was also. He was involved at USC one year. Tennessee.
He played at USC back in the day too.
Yeah,
Memphis could be another one if that opened.
I think Memphis would be a great fit for Eddie George. And so, yeah, I mean, I definitely think he could be a 2-and-done, 3-and-done if he keeps bringing in dudes like Pyne. I mean, if you bring in some dudes in the MAC, you can flip that thing real quick and jump to a P4 or P5. I don't even know how many P's there are anymore.
Yeah. Now Bowling Green fans, I'm not trying to piss you off here. I'm just saying the problem with him being, you did a great job by hiring, especially with the cards you were dealt.
Yes.
And look, in nowadays college football, you saw Boise State in the playoffs. Bowling Green back in the Greg Brandon era and the Urban Meyer era and even the Clausen era, they had some fire years where they're winning, 10, 11 games. That would put you on the cusp for that group of 5 berth, so you dream on, you know what I mean? Dream on. I think, who knows, the one thing I'd be weary of is if he wins too fast, too early. You almost want him to 6-6, 7-5, 6-6, 6-6. Boom. 10-2. But I don't know. I mean, either way, it's going to be fascinating to watch. I love seeing all these players, jump in there. But to me, this is not like a random hire. He's earned it by what he did at Tennessee State. Did a very good job with them. Shout out to R. Wright giving us $10. Good to listen to you, gentlemen. He says, thank you so much, man. Appreciate you. Always cool to see you in here in the chat. Once again, folks, join the chat, youtube.com/the college experience. We talk college football year round here, but also we have the college basketball experience, the college baseball experience, the FCS college football experience as well. So check out all of those, all on this platform, youtube.com/the college experience. Look, gonna talk about the other hire that happened, that I've keyed in on, and there's already a podcast out about Troy Taylor being gone from Stanford. But before I do that, I want to let the good folks know that the college football experience is brought to you by Edge Boost. Have you ever had your deposit blocked by your bank right before a big bet? Ever needed cash at 2 a.m. for another shot at the tables to, but you already hit your ATM limit? Well, guess what? Edge Boost has your back. Yes, Edge Boost is the first ever bank account built for bettors. Edge Boost gives you fast, reliable access to your funds, making it easier to move money when when and wherever you need it, I guess. But without the delays that come with traditional banks. And let me tell you, folks, for you high rollers, you can move up to $250,000 a day on Edge Boost, their Visa debit card with unlimited, I repeat, unlimited withdrawals. That's 24/7 for instant deposits. You will never wait for another wire transfer to clear ever again. And it gets better every time you deposit into a qualified gambling account. You earn cashback rewards up to 0.5% there. All this for no usage fees and no minimum balance. So what are you doing, folks? Edge Boost is a debit account that makes it easy to get started too, with no credit checks, no minimum balance, no usage fees. Simply verify your identity and boom, you are ready to go. So what are you doing? Go to edgeboost.bet. Use our promo code SGPN. Once again, that's edgeboost.bet, promo code SGPN. Sign up today for Edge Boost. We're also brought to you by mybookie.ag. Yes, MyBookie is your place to bet on every single sport, including the NBA playoffs. Been killing it with the UFL over there as well. Check out the UFL gambling podcast. But look, there's props for every game there at MyBookie. MyBookie accepts a ton of customers from a bunch of different locations, even outside of the States. You can easily deposit, get lightning fast payouts using crypto. So head on over to mybookie.ag. But when you do, use our promo code TCE SGPN for 100% deposit match up to $1,000. That's mybookie.ag, promo code TCE SGPN. All right, we are back. We just talked ourselves into potentially buying some stock on the Bowling Green Falcons. And hell, I didn't think I was going to come into this episode thinking that. Just like I didn't think I would be coming into this episode thinking I would buy stock on the Stanford Cardinal. But here they are. Troy Taylor didn't get much of a run in Palo Alto. Now he is a former California Golden Bear, and it makes you wonder.
Luck.
They're like, oh, it was this bastard. You gave him the enemies here. So he was fired by Andrew Luck. Remember, Andrew Luck hired late November, almost early December, to be their general manager. And he's in charge of all football activity. They gave him 100% of everything, apparently. And he fired Troy Taylor over the past couple weeks at Stanford. Now, obviously, Andrew Luck played at Stanford. It's a proud program with a lot of great history behind it. Pop Warner, Bill Walsh, Dennis Green, Jim Harbaugh, David Shaw, Buddy Tevens. You can go on and on about the great coaches that have coached at Stanford. But Andrew Luck walks in, fires Troy Taylor essentially after a few months on the job. Now, I know that behind the scenes, there's some stuff there. Who the fuck knows what really happened? But it was surprising. And then I thought, who could he possibly hire? And I'll be honest, I thought Pep Hamilton was going to be that guy that he called, the OC of the Maryland Terrapins this year, previously with the Houston Texans and previously in the XFL prior to that. But I thought there was a slew of other coaches that he might try to, but he goes out and hires Frank Reich. And I think the biggest surprise here is Frank Reich, involved with one of the greatest college football comebacks ever back at the University of Maryland in the 80s against Miami. Go watch that on YouTube if you haven't seen that. But also in the NFL as well with the Buffalo Bills against the Houston Oilers. It was a little out of left field because he's never coached in college.
Yeah.
But his brother did at Wingate University, D2, and was a damn good coach. And his father, the Reich family is his father played at Penn State, played in the NFL as well. So they are football through and through. But I didn't see this shit coming. He wasn't even on my list. And I mean, I guess he shouldn't be on my list because he said, like, this is a one and done. Even if we were to go undefeated, I'm not coming back, which I thought was interesting. So it's like he just needed a gig for a year, go out to Palo Alto on the farm, kick back, coach a little football. How surprised were you at this fucking hire? Because I could not. I just didn't have this on the radar. I had Chuck Pagano on my list, by the way. I didn't have Frank Reich on the list. Your thoughts?
So I think I'll try and guess here and connect the dots. So Frank Reich was Andrew Luck's coach 1 year in the NFL, and it was his final year where he came back from those injuries. They got him to the playoffs in his first year. And then remember, Andrew Luck pulled the surprise retirement last minute. And I think Frank Reich was really supportive of him. And I feel like Andrew Luck may have thought he owed him one. And like you said, Frank Reich just wants a gig for a year. Hey, I just fired my coach middle of the spring. Come coach, come stabilize my program. I'll throw you a bone, return the favor. That's the only thing I can kind of add here. I mean, he does have experience kind of being an interim for the Carolina Panthers for a year. He was the coach for like 10 weeks and then they fired his ass, which was crazy, that crazy owner down there. But yeah, this was left field. I'm with you. I had Pagano over Wright because Pagano was Andrew Luck's head coach for 4 or 5 years and a little more familiar with the college game than Frank Reich. But I think it was a favor.
I wonder if he brings on his brother on the staff. Like, I mean, I know he's taking over and it seems like he's keeping a lot of the staff intact.
Yeah.
But I mean, his brother very familiar with the college game. And to me, like some of these D2 coaches and FCS coaches are super sharp at the college game. And he just retired 2 years ago. So like, I wonder if you bring him in, say, hey dude, what do I need to know about the college game? But you're also in this point where you're in the ACC, which is awkward as fuck. Let's not hide that. Stanford in the ACC is awkward, but Frank Reich's familiar with the ACC. A lot of these places he's played at when Maryland was in the ACC because he was playing at Maryland. So in that regard, you're like, okay, I mean, I guess you have some familiarity, but it's been 40 fucking years. I don't know if there's any validity in that, but I just didn't see it coming. So now, but here's the problem. Once they fired Troy Taylor, a slew of their best players dipped out.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know what to make of this team. So in the portal, they got absolutely, they normally get killed in the portal because they can't go get the same type of athlete because it's very hard for them to get into Stanford. It's just this is part of the problem, I would say, but you're seeing Notre Dame do it. So I don't know. They just got to lower that shit and look the other way a few times. But so they've lost a slew of guys. Offensive line specifically, 2 of their guys to Oklahoma, another to Mississippi State. So they lost 3 offensive linemen to SEC schools. Ashton Daniels, their quarterback, went to Auburn, where I think he's going to most likely be a backup there. But Chase Farrell goes to Northwestern. They had another wideout in Emmett Mosley go to Texas. And then the big one was David Bailey, their D end, who's a beast. He left for Texas Tech. Texas Tech's just getting everybody. Also, lost another Cisse, a wide receiver, to Arkansas. I mean, they got fucking destroyed. A lot of these did come. I mean, a decent amount of these did come after, a decent of these were before the Troy Taylor firing. Then a few big names after the fact. But man, you want to talk about one of the most unpredictable things or teams this year, Stanford in the ACC. The team, I mean, we're going to look at the schedule in a second here. I got it on the screen, youtube.com/the college experience, but does the shoe fit for 1 year? Is it a good hire for one? I don't even know what to compare this to because other, like, I guess you could say Jim Grobe, when he was at Baylor, was hired for 1 year after, but he was familiar with the college game. He was recently at Wake Forest and stuff. I don't know that I can compare it to anything. I don't know that there's an example of just hiring an NFL coach. Cause I'll tell you this, if we talk about this on, like, normally a lot of these NFL coaches struggle with the college game. I know you can name like a couple examples, like Pete Carroll, came down to the college game and killed it. But for every one of those, there's Lovie Smith. There's just a slew of these guys that have came from the NFL game down to college and really, really struggled. So, will it work for 1 year? And what is working for 1 year? Like, what is I know we're going to go game by game here, but what would be a success for Frank Reich as an interim head coach for 1 year in Palo Alto?
5-7. Like, I don't think they can get to a bowl. I mean, we're going to touch on their schedule here because there are no favorites on this thing. And then, of course, you put in the travel. They just don't have a lot of experience coming back, and they got rated, and just the unknown of the coach. The staff is still getting to know each other. I know that he's kind of held it together, but they're learning what Frank Reich wants. Is he going to play like he did with the Colts, the Panthers?
Well, and they have Andy Thompson as DC, who's a Troy Taylor guy. Like, he was the DC at Sac State with Troy Taylor. Then when Troy Taylor left, he recommended Sac State hire him. Sac State hired him for 2 years, fired him. But he's a Troy Taylor guy. Is that awkward? I wonder if they're going to end up canning him.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you just wonder. The scenarios there are kind of crazy, but Stanford is always crazy like this. Stanford scheduled a few years ago. Stanford scheduled 12 Power Fives. I've never seen that in my life. I've never seen that in my fucking life. Right? They scheduled 12 Power Fives a couple years ago, and I couldn't believe. This is how I knew the ESPN schedule ranking shit was garbage. Because they're like, Arkansas has the hardest schedule in the nation. I was like, impossible. Arkansas plays like Arkansas Pine Bluff. I was like, Stanford plays 12 Power Fives. Now, yes, all of them aren't LSU, but it's still 12 fucking Power Fives is 12 Power Fives. Stanford might have done it again. Going to talk about that. But before I do that, I do want to let you know that the college football experience is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. What are you doing, folks? I love Underdog Fantasy. We killed it with college basketball and March Madness. I'm playing it in UFL, playing it in MLB. When it comes to stat projections and stuff like that, it is. You can find an edge you can't find elsewhere. Underdog also has Underdog Pick'em, where you can win up to 100 times the amount of money you enter in any sport. Yes. So what are you doing? Sign up. Use our promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus credits. UnderdogFantasy.com promo code TCESGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Yes, Rhythm is your home for AI-backed picks and props, and Rhythm is now live for their models on MLB just dropped. How about that? Plus, they got models for NBA and golf. Picks so good it feels like cheating, folks. And what I love too is you can build your own model. You can take a thing here from what they do, thing there from what they do. I like building my own though to say it's mine. Rhythm has some amazing deals too going on. 25% off their monthly subscription with the promo code SGPN25. Also 50% off the annual subscription with the promo code SGPN50. That's RITHMM. That's Rhythm. Promo code SGPN25 or SGPN50. All right. Hey, there we go.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia.
There we go. So here we are. Stanford. They don't really play FCSs. Oh. I kind of respect it, but I also think you probably should. They start off week 0. Now that's the one thing they gave themselves. They got 3 bye weeks because they're playing week 0. But what are you thinking going to the island? So they play in the ACC. So you're getting 8 Power Fives. They have a 9th in BYU, a 10th in Notre Dame. And their 2 other games are at Hawaii on the island week 0, which I know people say, well, look, Hawaii has been terrible. I think Timmy Chang's got that team improving year by year. I think they're going to be a pretty good team this year. And then at home against San Jose State, who beat them a year ago, and might I tell you, Ken Niumatalolo has been talking about how good his team is. I don't know if you guys have caught any of this on. He is raving about. He thinks he's got a team that could win the Mountain West this year. Well, I'll tell you one thing about Ken. I've met Ken. I've had him on the show. He doesn't brag unless he's got a fucking good team. So I am buying stock in San Jose State this year, but that schedule is brutal. And we'll talk about, because I even think it gets dealt an even harder hand by who they have to play in the ACC. So we're going to go right here. They're at Hawaii week 0. Then they get a bye week. Then they're at LaVell Edwards Stadium taking on BYU. Then home to Boston College, who looked pretty good in Bill O'Brien's first year there. Then at Virginia, Tony Elliott, big year from there. Home to San Jose State. At SMU. Home to Saudi Arabia State, a.k.a. Florida State. At Miami. Home to Pitt. At North Carolina. Belichick, right? What the fuck's going on? We got the AFC back in college sports now. And then the rivalry game, the big game there against the California Golden Bears. And then home to Notre Dame. That is their schedule. And when I look at this, though, my first thought is, I think every team could be a fucking bowl team. Like Florida State, I know was terrible last year, but Saudi Arabia State, I don't think they're going to be that bad this year. I think they're going to be a bowl team. I think they're going to be, 7-8 wins probably in the ACC. So you look at the other teams, you're like, Notre Dame played for the national championship. SMU was in the playoffs. BYU should have been in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Was right there. Miami was knocking on the door in the playoffs. Florida State, 2 years removed from an undefeated season. Belichick, Chapel Hill, landed Gio Lopez. Cal is a bowl team, and that's a rivalry game. Pitt will probably be a bowl team, and assuming Narduzzi and the wheels don't fall off. Dude, where the fuck are the wins on here, man? Like, I honestly don't think they'll be 0-12 because I think they have Stanford always recruits enough athletes because of their rep as a school. But damn, if I don't see one that I just say that is a for sure win. Do you?
No. And what they win? They won the opener at Hawaii 2 years ago in Troy Taylor's first game. But I mean, that's not an easy game.
That was Timmy Chang's first year too, though. Or, it's I'm saying, like,
that line's going to be what? Within a possession, like 3.
Yeah.
I bet it's gonna be 3. Stanford -3 or whatever. If that, it might be closer to a pick. Dude, and then at BYU, you draw at BYU there. I did get a chuckle. I'm like, what if they're like 0-8 and then they beat Pitt? Like, it's such a Narduzzi loss.
Well, that's the thing. They'll beat somebody. Like, I feel very confident. I mean, like, if you go game by game, you can make a case they could go 0-12, especially if they lose to Hawaii.
This got 2-10 or 3-9 written all over it.
Yeah, I mean, but they will catch. Stanford beat Syracuse last year at Syracuse. If they didn't lose that game, they would have played for the ACC championship. They're always good enough to catch somebody because there's guys that make their NFL, even in their darkest years, they put pros into the NFL because Stanford's academics and how prestigious it is. You bring in some guys that just are fucking great players, regardless of the coach or the scheme or whatever. So, I mean, they'll probably end up, I could totally see them getting Pitt. I could totally see them. I mean, obviously the Cal game's always wacky. Yeah. I could even see Florida State or something if they come out there and just start fucking around. But I mean, it's a strange thing. We kind of saw this a year ago, or especially in hoops where, you go out west or vice versa, them coming east. It's hard. That's hard on the body clock. I mean, there's that stat in the NFL about teams that travel to the Pacific time or 2 time zones or whatever. I think there's a lot of validity in that. So how about this then? Let's say he wins 2 or 3 games. Andrew Luck. I know, it's not like the Eddie George situation. We know Reich is said he's gone. Who do you turn to? If
external? Yeah, I mean, I would look at. I would look at somebody during Shaw's era there because
I thought Shaw might want to come back because of Luck's connection with them and the new president liking sports. See, their old president apparently did not really care for sports. They have a new president that cares about sports apparently. So, I mean, that's a start.
I would look at a Harbaugh guy too. I mean, get back to playing that hard-nosed, tough, run the ball, Toby Gerhart. And I know Andrew Luck was a sexy name, but they won because they were
Hamilton.
physical. Yes,
Pep Hamilton. My only problem with Pep Hamilton is he's Maryland's OC, and they might be bad this year. So I'm like, he might do himself no favors. He's better off staying out of football for a year. But I think Pep Hamilton. I think the home run that I mentioned was Chris Peterson. Chris Peterson's from Northern California, played at UC Davis, right? That is one that I actually now I don't know that Luck and Peterson have ever met in their life, but to me, with what they have, he could actually make them nasty because I do believe their academics bring in an athlete. They'll never not have athletes because they can get some really good ones based on their academics or based on their prestige. So I think he could actually make it work there. That would be the home run. I have no idea if he wants to get back into coaching, but I know he lives in Northern California. It's on par with Walsh. You know what I mean? Or it's just the shoe fits, Ty Willingham style or something. But
I'm gonna dive more into Harbaugh's staff out there with the Chargers. Maybe I haven't studied his staff yet. Is there a guy that's got some college pedigree on there? Because Harbaugh's gonna have a say in because that's Andrew Luck's former coach. So maybe John Harbaugh's staff over with the Ravens. So maybe if there's a college guy on one of those staffs that wants a crack at the Stanford gig, maybe they go the NFL route with one of the Harbaughs to get back to that hard-nosed football brand of football.
Yeah, I tend to think that'll probably be. I'm fascinated by seeing that. I'm kind of fascinated by this. Andrew, what do you think of a player that 10 years ago played for your school being in charge of their whole entire football program? It wasn't 10 years ago, but it wasn't that long ago. It was 13, 14 years ago. How do you feel in general? Take Andrew Luck's name out of that. Just in general of having a former player. We saw it with Max Crosby yesterday. We talked about this on the show. Eastern Michigan. He's their new general manager there. Ron Rivera at Cal. There's some other ones too. I'm drawing a blank on, but do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? I know you kind of for Crosby and Eastern Michigan, you thought maybe it's a good thing.
I don't want them super involved. I want them to be the face and be there to support financially. I don't want them making every goddamn decision. I don't want him firing coaches when he's got no experience doing that. These are big time decisions. And for him to just can Troy Taylor, I know they're going to say it's the allegations, but I think he just didn't want him because it wasn't his guy.
Which is terrible. He's a cow guy. That's the real thing. He came in. I guarantee you, Luck came in and said, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah,
he's a spy. All right, fucking Taylor's a spy. We got to can this guy. All right. Well, yeah, it's gonna be fascinating to watch. Man, I look at that Stanford schedule. One more thing to note is who do you want in the ACC this year? Who are the worst teams you think of in the ACC this year? There's potential. Yeah, I mean, Stanford, I think, will be one of them. But to me, you want to be playing Virginia, I would think. Virginia and to me, honestly, Virginia and Virginia Tech have two of the biggest question marks coming into the season. Maybe and Wake Forest would be number one. Wake Forest would be the team you want to play there. Jake Dickert era, Clawson's gone. But it's not a kind schedule. Because I honestly, I'm going to go ahead and make a case here that I think 11 of these 12 schools will be bowling. Potentially 12 of 12. Virginia has got some money that came through their program this year, which they haven't had in a while. They were close to bowling last year. If Virginia gets to a bowl game, I think all these other teams are going to be bowl teams. So to me, that's a fucking brutal schedule. Frank Reich, enjoy college football in your 1 year as a head coach. All right. I don't know if this is going to help you get back on the NFL radar, maybe as an OC or quarterbacks coach, but I don't know. What do you think? How many teams do you think will make a bowl on that schedule? I know you're going to say 11. Pitt doesn't make a bowl. And Narduzzi's fired, right?
5-7. That's a lock. I'd say
Dan Marino and his really dynamic wife.
I mean, the absolute locks are BYU, San Jose State, SMU, Notre Dame. I don't know what to do with North Carolina. I think they're a bowl team. I think they have the talent. Miami's got to be a lock. You would think Florida State's got to be a lock after the year they had. We'll go 8 or 9. 8 or 9. Somebody's got to lose these games. I know every preseason we talk ourselves into this team and that team. And then it's like, well, all right, I'll just give all the losses to Pitt.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Folks, we will be back tomorrow talking, speaking of, we just mentioned Virginia and Virginia Tech. Well, tomorrow is an episode. We're going to have some friends on from the Too Deep podcast and the Sons of Saturday podcast that talk Virginia Tech football. It's strictly a Virginia Tech episode. We're going to talk about of the program, football and basketball really, but mainly football as they are a football school first historically. We're going to talk about Brent Pry on the hot seat. What can he make it through? We already got Kyron Drones, who seems to be injured. He's on the pitch count as far as throwing the ball, but we will be talking Hokies tomorrow with the state of the program episode for Virginia Tech. So same time tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern. So join us then. Please, if you can, follow Ryan McIntyre here, Moneyline Mac, on Twitter at Moneyline_Mac. Check out the college basketball experience. Did an episode last night. Fire stuff. It's always college basketball season on the college basketball experience. And I'm on Twitter at TheColbyD. The college football experience is on Twitter at TCE on SGPN. Check out the college baseball experience. Check out all the other stuff we're doing. FCS college football experience. Also, it's spring, man. We're talking UFL gambling podcast. CFL gambling. We got all these other sports going on right now. MLB gambling podcast, all on the platform. Check it all out, folks. And we will see you tomorrow. Till next time, this is the college football experience. Bowling Green and Stanford style. You better start thinking about yours. And we out of here.
Run and shoot. We can really run and shoot.